The barrier to entry for building apps is lower than it's ever been, but how do the best builders approach it? Taking inspiration from people who ship on the regular can help us create products so much faster. On episode 70 of Tool Use, we're joined by Jason Kneen. He joined us back on episode 7 in an MCP deep dive, and he's back at it again. He's built Cluso. It's an AI-powered browser for front-end development. And we're not only going to get to see a demo of Cluso, but we're going to get to learn about how Jason built it. We're going to go over how to use voice for control, not just transcription, how to set up an orchestrator model to route requests to the best model for the job, and how to leverage MCP within your app. So please enjoy this conversation and demo with Jason Kneen.
I think end of last year, it was end of 2024, beginning of 2025, I had this kind of idea about taking the web inspector from Chrome that we all use when we're coding and stuff, and you click on things and go into elements, and try and make that a much more simpler interface, specifically to take what you capture with it and put it into the vibe coding tool that you're using. Because the frustration has always been, and I still get it to this day, because I'm not using Cluso fully yet. The frustration is that these things are useless with context. And so, if you change direction during a conversation, if you change the focus that you think, well, I was talking about that button, now I'm talking about this button, it gets very confused. Whereas if you can point and click and you can give it the information that it needs, then it makes it a lot easier. So I started playing with it, probably building the first concepts of it about February, March. And I started the repo in April. And I did my usual thing of talking too much about it. And I talked in spaces, and there was someone literally in a space that said on X that said, oh, you know what I really need is something that I can point and click. And I'm like, whoa, speaker alert, I'm building it. And then I did my usual thing of sort of sitting on it and not doing much and going back and forth on other things. And by that time, and it wasn't the fact that, other people heard me or whatever, or copied it, whatever. It was just inevitable. It's like my argument about the light bulb. We wouldn't be in the dark. Someone would have come up with it. So it was inevitable that it was going to happen. And a few ones popped up. But what they didn't have was the thing that, for me, made it cool for me, which is voice. I didn't want to have to do. I really didn't want to have to do much. I struggle sometimes when I'm getting angry as well with these things, typing coherently so they can tell when I'm really annoyed. So I wanted something where I could not even dictate. That's the key thing. It's more talking to an actual AI, talking to an actual assistant, and actually describing what you're seeing, but also logging. So, for example, if you're proofreading a design or something or whatever, you might scribble on it, or you might mark it up, or you might put, electronic post-it notes or whatever you do on it. I wanted to do that. So I wanted to go into a voice mode where I could actually talk through the site and go, right, I don't like this logo. This is too big. We need to make it smaller, like these ones over here. And I wanted to be able to scribble and point with the cursor and sort of say this and this, and have it time code those clicks. So that every element that I was clicking on, it's now putting that into a time-coded script, if you like, based on the transcript. So now it knows what I'm saying, when I was saying it, and what I was clicking on when I was saying it, which means there can't be any confusion about what I'm talking about when I say this button and this button, because I'm actually clicking on the button. And I wanted it to do source mapping so that it would give the agent as much information as possible. This is in this file, it's between these lines, it's this element, this is what it looks like in the DOM, and stuff like that in the actual HTML. So it can really hone and pinpoint it. So that was what I was after. And a few came out. There's been a few more recently. And Cursor's obviously done a big thing. They added it, Windsurf did it. Everyone had the inspector thing, and Replit, and pretty much everybody. But they've all done not what I want, not what my vision was of Cluso, which was that ability to actually click, record, and then leave it, and it kind of creates a to-do list and gets on with it, They're all very much click, adjust, and it's not really what I was after. You can do that, but it's not what I was after. So I probably visited it about 2 or 3 times. I built 2 or 3 versions, and I was never really happy with it. And then about a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, I sort of looked at it again and thought, look, I can do this. And I've been playing a lot with Claude agents and a few more like CLI tools, but also Electron and Tori for desktop apps. I thought I can do this, so I did a quick prototype in AI Studio, which actually did a pretty good job. But it kind of suffers after a couple of attempts to fix it, and so I took it down and then started working on it locally. And now it's got to the point where, apart from a few little things that I just had to tweak before I release, it's kind of doing what I want. But my problem with this stuff is I had too much thing. I had too many things in. So what goes from being a very simple app has become something more of a beast now. But I mean, it's very cool because one of the other things it does, which I'll show you, is the mobile stuff. So a lot of these things, a lot of these web vibe coding tools have the mobile view, but I want to see everything at the same time. So I wanted to be able to see multiple web views at the same time, and as I change one thing, it's changing in the others, and as I scroll, it scrolls the others, and as I change pages, it changes the others, so I can literally see the effect straight away of what's going on.
It really speaks to how bespoke software is starting to take over, where even though these powerful tools exist, if it doesn't fit your workflow, you don't have to change your workflow. You can just build your own tooling to get the optimal setup for yourself.
And also, it's not all about the instant. It's not like, sometimes what I want to do is just give it a list of to-dos, just give it a list of things, because I'm starting to get more and more into using things like Claude in the cloud and stuff like that. So I've got a free Max account at the moment because they gave me a free Max account for a period of time because I gave them a pip library. And so I want to maximize that. So I'll go to bed and look at my time left, and I've got 5 hours of 100% time. I'll stick a load of to-dos in and have Claude in the cloud working on it. So I could be rocking 4 different things at the same time. So I just want to be able to go look at the pull request, look at the thing, right? Do. Scribble. Even on an iPad, imagine that. You could have a web view on the iPad, scribble, creates the to-do list for you, and then goes off and does it. So it's that kind of workflow that I need. And I've also got, because I use different tools and write with different things, I also use things like OpenCode. I've done like a fork of OpenCode, so I wanted to be able to run those as well. So I've got a little terminal view using Ghosty web version. So I'm kind of mixing everything together to try and create something where they can all communicate, and I can just oversee it, which will be really cool. That
is really cool. Before we get into a demo, I just have a couple questions. One is with voice, because I use voice all the time, and for a lot of people, it's the best way to interact with AI. Because yours is a little more than just transcription, could you go into some of the challenges that you encountered when implementing voice in this project?
Yeah, so I'm using at the moment Gemini. I'm using Gemini Voice, mainly because it was originally done in AI Studio, the first version, and it was just automatically put in. But when it goes in, it has no context really. It's kind of like, oh, I'm looking at your app, So the biggest thing with voice is always context. It's always trying to give the model enough information that you don't overload it, but it's still responsive, but it kind of knows what you're trying to get access to. So typical problems that will have come up, and I've spotted this in a few other services, is the nesting of React components. Not just React, but any sort of library, where you have the app.tsx and then you have other files inside it. It gets confused as to which one's which. So it will tell you that the title. So I was working on one of the apps that I've done, and I wanted to change the title as a demo to say, get rid of that welcome and change it to something else. And it said, I've done it. And it came up as a file change. And I went, okay, saved it. And I refreshed it. It was still the same. And it was only when I had a look around that there were actually 2 of these welcome messages. One was in the main app file and one was in the component, which was actually the thing being shown. And it thought it was the app file. So you have to kind of do some things. It specifically seems to happen with server-side rendering. So it just gets really confused, because obviously when you're clicking on the DOM, you're clicking on the HTML, it's trying to do a source map back to the actual source code. And sometimes it just gets confused. So it's trying to teach you how to do that. And I know that's not specifically about voice, but it kind of manifests in voice, because you'll go, can you show me the button? And it'll go, I highlighted the button. It's like, no, you haven't highlighted the button. Oh, okay, let me highlight that. And so there was a lot of issues around that, but also I do a clever, I think it's a clever trick. I do a clever trick with the editing where I cheat in a way, because the big problem with some of the other solutions out there is you pick on something and then it generates you the sort of code or the context of that item, and then you put it into your cursor chat or whatever, and then you press go, and then you sit there while it goes, let me see if I can find that for you. Oh, I found it. Let me change that for you. And you're going, and nothing's happening, and then bang, it changes color. Great. I didn't want that. I wanted instant. So what I do is I hack the DOM first. So I do a hack directly of the DOM, so it changes the HTML that you're seeing. And at the same time, I do a provisional change of the code using a local fast model. So you can actually download a local fast model and use that. And then the idea is that hopefully, if it's done a good job of changing that color, you're going to be fine. So you just go agree and it's done. But if you don't, you can change your mind, and we go through, it scraps that change and we go through it again. So the perception is it's done an instant change, but actually it's a little trick. It's a bit like the voice things where they sort of fill in space while they're waiting for the feeds to come back. So that's been a challenge to get that right. The voice, the other challenge has been the other things that you need to be able to do that you forget about when you're using voice. So it's all very well doing like a smoke and mirrors type demo and a cool demo where you say, pick the download button, change it to blue, and then someone says, can you change the logo? And you go, yeah, how am I going to do that? So can you change the logo for the one that's is it in the public folder? I don't know if it's in the public folder. So then that got me down the route of I need to have a files browser, but by voice. So the one thing that it started doing then was I needed to give it a way to list the files, go into folders, go back, scrub that, show me that file, use that file. So that's when you start coming up with things like the numbering of elements. So now I've got a very kind of, it's a bit like Stagehand, I guess, but it's not using any of their sort of tech. But essentially I've got a thing where I can say, show me the files, and the file browser comes up. But it's kind of like a bigger file browser. It's almost like a sort of fat fingers on the phone, it comes up and they're all numbered. And you can just say, go into 3, and it goes into the folder. Show me 2, comes up with the image. And then the idea is you'll be able to say, right, park that, and then you can go to where you want to go, and then, you can pull that back, and then, so, because that's the problem, that was the missing bit that I didn't have, because you could show off with the voice, and then go, oh no, I've got to go back into the chat now. I wanted to be able to do everything like that, So
Excellent.
That's been difficult, but it's been very cool.
Those are unique challenges for voice because we don't have the mouse and click, and there's so many UI elements that we just can't interact with. Is there an upper bound to how complex an app can be through Cluso?
No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, it's I guess the challenge is, and I've got to do some more testing, and that's part of why I'm releasing it as a beta, is to sort of discover that. And what I've discovered is things like, you've got code that's a little bit broken and a few tags that are not very well defined, and it's just you're getting away with it, you can then cause problems. And so one of the things I need to do is put in there some validation of your code initially. So it's almost like before I touch, before we get, let's just run this through a little diagnostic, a little doctor, just to make sure the linting's good and everything else is good. And then the other thing is verification when it does the changes, because it can hack the HTML very quickly, but that doesn't mean it's going to have an easy job behind the scenes. So it's trying to make sure that it's giving you that instant response, but also able to handle the code changes without breaking anything. Because I've got a couple of safeguards here, which you'll see, which I'm going to turn off. But when you change something, when you change something initially with voice or whatever, you can do a quick preview and sort of tap and go between. That's still going to stay there. But the second one is a verification in the chat window if you've got it open, and then a final notification that you get for the files changing. So one of the things I wanted to do was capture all the file changes. So I wrote a little watcher that basically watches the folder when the project's active, so that if you went into your terminal and used a different app to change something, it would still detect that there's been a change. So you've got that sort of coverage. So that's been a bit challenging. Indexing, searching is a massive challenge. What I've done is implemented a kind of local mgrep. Mgrep's quite popular at the moment. It's very fast, but you sort of use the service online. So I've taken the concept of that and run it locally. and I'll show you the search results. I mean, it's crazy how fast it is. So that's helped. So it's kind of like I'm kind of having to use all kinds of tricks in the book, to try and make it snappy. But it's been fun. But yeah, there shouldn't be a limit really.
Good. Yeah, no, and it's one of those things you can't really tell until you put it out to the wild and see what people do with it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that'll be exciting. One thing I noticed under the features was MCP tooling and just MCP integration. How does MCP factor into what feels like a very robust app?
Yeah. So basically, well, there's kind of a few different sides to it. So because I'm using multiple agents, or I can use multiple agents, so it can use Claude. I've got ChatGPT in there. I've got Codex in there. I'm adding Gemini in, and other sort of CLI tools. A lot of those have already got their own MCPs, and if you use the Claude Agent SDK, it will actually say, I've got these MCPs because it's got its built-in ones. But what I wanted to do was have something. There was two things. One, I wanted to have some sort of general MCP library that I could manage intelligently with the context, because one of the things I've done is this thing that I've kind of coined the phrase of context chips, mainly because the actual user interface elements are referred to as chips. I always used to call them pills, and they call them chips. So it's like, okay, so we'll call them chips. So I came up with this concept of context chips. So as you type or as you speak, it's kind of working out what you want, and it's creating these little chips above the chat that kind of like, you want to do a UE change, you want to do a search, or you want to do a research, or you want to do a web search or whatever. And so by bringing in all these chips, it can sort of guide the context. So what I'm doing in the background is part of a bigger thing I'm working on, which is this concept of context splicing. So what I do is I take all the context and I slice it, or splice it up into sort of sections, and then I index those with tags with the chips. So if you say, there's a problem with the AI SDK streaming, that's AI SDK is going to be a chip, streaming is going to be a chip, AI chat's going to be a chip, and then it's going to pull the context together that's relevant, plus from the, the conversation and the knowledge base kind of thing, and then it's going to feed that in. So that context context management is challenging. And with MCP, what you don't want is to just have loads of MCP servers going in that are not relevant. So the way I do it when I'm running something that controls other MCP clients is I do like a sort of loop back. So Cluso acts as an MCP server host, so it can add MCPs. It's also its own MCP server. So what it can do is it can add itself to Claude and add itself to Gemini and add itself to Codex as a single MCP source with a single tool. So it's very simple. And then when the instructions it gives it is when you need to use a tool, use the Cluso tool or the use tool. They use the tool to say, I need to do, or, what can I do? Or I need to do this. That one tool can now serve back the MCP tools that they need, which they can almost subscribe to as well. So it's kind of like the MCPs thing that I came up with, where it's like toolboxes, but it gives me full control then of the whole of the tooling. So because Claude is a classic, Claude, they changed it recently, but if you added it as an MCP, it had a massive, I think it was the grep tool, had a massive schema and description, took up loads of tokens for no reason if you didn't need it. So I want to be able to manage that a bit more, and that gives me a lot of consistency then between the different agents as well. So yeah, that's the main reason. Oh, and the other thing is when I'm using it through, I've added a Chrome extension because I wanted to do Colab, but I wanted to be able to do it where I could use like a Safari even or a Chrome on a tablet or something, but not have to have the full app. So the Chrome extension has its own MCP capability. So basically it can communicate back to the main app that it's collected a load of notes. And so that was kind of what I wanted to do with the MCP stuff.
That's very cool. And one other aspect that I definitely want to touch on, because I'm very interested in this area, is the idea of fast orchestration, where a query comes in and it doesn't necessarily go to its final destination right away. It might get routed to a specific model or augmented with different tools or supplemental information. Can you talk about how you approach the fast orchestration aspect of Cluso?
Okay, so there's a few things. One in terms of response time is, and this I've only learnt this recently. that if you use the Claude Agent SDK, or you use quite a few of these tools that do streaming as part of their return, they're a CLI lookup, but you're establishing a connection. It's really quick. At the moment, when you go into like Claude and you use it with Anthropic's API, let's say, you're going to do a request, you're going to send it to Anthropic. Because Claude Code, for example, can OAuth two different ways. There's three different ways. You can do an OAuth with the API and get a normal key. You could do an OAuth with Claude, and then you're using Claude Code just with your Max account. But you can also do an OAuth with Claude Code and get a key. You still have to use the OAuth headers because it won't work. That key by itself won't work, but it basically gives you the ability to use the Anthropic servers like you would normally, but with your Claude Code key. The problem with the key methods is you've got a round trip latency. So your message goes up, it comes back. If you connect via the CLI, which sounds like it's the slowest thing to do, through the Claude Agent SDK and establish a streaming connection, it's like opening a pipe that you don't need to turn the tap again and wait for the water. Well, you don't need to dial the number and wait. You're constantly connected, which means you can actually do that first connection like very quickly with like a quick hello and establish that link. And so the moment you then type, oh, let's do something, you get an instant response from Claude, especially if you use Haiku. So it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that's a key thing, because that gives you instant responses that you can use. So if you imagine I might be clicking on something, and if I'm clicking, I could almost get it to be checking stuff in real time because it's going to run in a separate thread as well. So there's that aspect of it. And then the other thing that I'm building in is the orchestration thing, which is all about picking the right tool for the job. So, and the right model for the job. So 5.2, for example, has come out, 5.2 Pro, and I think it's some stupid output price of like $100 and crazy number dollars for 1 million. It's way over $150, I think, for the output tokens. And the output tokens is where they're always pumping out most of the, the nonsense and the excuses as to why something's gone wrong. So for me, I love 5.2. I really think it's good. I think it's a waste to use it for tooling. I think it's a waste to use it for just basic stuff because it just takes too long to do things and burns too many tokens, and I use up all my limits. So what I want to do is have something where I've got several models. I have my triage model, probably like Haiku or 2.5 Flashlight or something really snappy. Could even be a local model. And I've been playing around with potentially bundling a really small Quen model, because that's just there to that's the receptionist. That's the doorman. It's like what do you need? I need you to do this, this, and then that's going to go and assemble everything else. It could pull the code from mgrep, it could pull the MCP tooling, it could pull some other resources from the knowledge base, and then hand that off to the next stage, which is going to be maybe the planning side of it. So maybe that is a 5.2, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's Sonnet, or maybe it's Opus, but maybe Sonnet would do it. So Sonnet could then go, oh, I think I've got a plan. Here's my plan. And that could then go to, say, 5.2 or Opus and be verified, tweaked, and then move through. And then what I want to do then is have basically just outlined instructions. Edit this file. It's like almost like, here's the patch, here's the file, here's why you're doing it, and then only give it that context. So you're only giving it those components, those tools, and that context. It cannot drift because it hasn't got anything else. You've wiped its memory and changed its whole. You've done a Men in Black on it, basically. And that's where that orchestration stuff comes from. It's all about focus and reducing hallucinations. And the frustration of what I had earlier, which is a two-tone side color on an app. And I said, can you make the top the same color as the background? It didn't. It did it the reverse, and then it changed something else, and then it changed something in the title bar that I didn't. And it's like,
I've been exploring an idea kind of similar where we'll have I've called it a router agent, but same type of thing, the receptionist, inbound request. And then it will scour a list of config files, just YAML configs, and that's what triggers the workflow. So that's where you define the model, the prompt, the tools available. So all the first model does is just like say, all right, here's a list of possibilities. Which one do I kick off? And then routes it there. So you're able to get the fast orchestration without having to worry about bogging down the context, like you said.
Yeah, otherwise it's like, it's literally, if you go through the whole receptionist, like a doctor's receptionist type thing, it's like having the receptionist who thinks, or they are a doctor, or they are a medical person, and they start to sort of try to give you advice. They haven't seen your records yet, they haven't got any history, but they're just sort of, oh, I think that sounds like, and it's just no, you You've got to go through the process. And there's another part to that, which is, we've been talking about it. I've spoken to you, I think, about it before. We've spoken in spaces about it, which is this concept of many, it's like what is it, 1,000, do you want to fight one elephant or 1,000 small elephants or something? It's like, do you want to use one big model to try and do everything? Or do you want to use 1,000 small models that all have different skills and abilities, but might not be as smart as the big model? But do you want to use those to try and solve the problem? And what everybody seems to be coming around to now is this whole, I think I saw it earlier, is instead of chain of thought, it's atom of thought. It's breaking down the tasks into much, much smaller chunks. And there's a thing that I'm going to build into Cluso, which is, I think it's MDAP or MDAD. I can't remember. But it's a paper that came out where they did this whole concept. And I've seen it done before by others, but essentially what they do is they break a task down, but they break it down into way smaller chunks than you would think. So it's a bit like the kind of ADHD style, if just make your bed in the morning. Just do that first. Then once you've made your bed, go and have a shower. Then do your teeth. It's like those little steps that most people will go, really? You need that broken down like that? But if you do that to the models, it changes it from, let's set up the app, let's set up a next template, to let's create the folder, let's create the package file, let's install the packages. And it's like very small steps, which sounds ridiculous, but the way it works is you put more modules on it. So I've run the experiment with 10 local models, 10 instances of Quen, I think it was 2.5B. So they were like 300 meg. So 300 meg times 10, 3 gig of memory in those models, 10 separate instances. And what they do is, when it has to do something, it says, right, we're going to create the package file. So, we got the folder, let's create the package file. And so all of the models now, or a vast number of them, start going, I think we need this. Let's do this. And they're not talking yet. They're just coming up with their, we're going to use React, we're going to use this, we're going to use NPM, we're going to use Yarn, whatever. Then what happens is all those results are checked. And if there's no consensus, it's binned and they do it again. And so they keep going. It's like, keep throwing it until you hit the target, until you get, that bullseye. And it could take an hour, but it could equally take 10 seconds. So it can end up being a much slower process. But I think I ran it for half an hour with an instruction of build me a to-do app, the classic. And half an hour later, I had this crazy to-do app that didn't look great because it's 2.5 billion local models, but it had all the functionality. It had tasks, subtasks, dates, completions, notifications, all these different things that it built just from the one statement of build me a sort of kick-ass to-do app. That was what I basically said. And because they'd all gone through this thing of layering and iterating, they'd done the basics, and then they'd looked at what they'd done and came up with the next thing. And because they were all doing it, they had to reach the consensus. And so you ended up with this working thing at the end. There was no bugs. It ran. It looked terrible, but it ran. So that is a really interesting concept. So I want to put stuff like that in there as well, because that's
cool.
Going to be crucial for the editing. So the app is it's in an Electron wrapper at the moment. I have tried putting it in Tori before, just for sort of memory and everything else, but Tori has quite a few restrictions that caused me a few problems. So it's currently in Electron. I am going to try and do it as a web app as well, pure web app that can be downloaded. It's just that it needs server side, it needs its own server components and things, and especially the terminal stuff. So I'll get there. So the basic structure is it's essentially like a web browser. So this is your main browser area, and then you've got the chat interface at the side. Can't really do much else at the moment apart from things like settings, but I can show you a few settings. So we've got general, basic stuff, check for updates, clearing data and things like that. We've got some basic display options, dark mode, light mode. I've got a nice transparency feature that I quite like, and changing font sizes and things like that. We'll come back to canvas nodes in a minute. It's a bit of a reveal. But yeah, you can modify everything pretty much within the look and feel. Provider-wise, we've got all the sort of regular suspects. I'm going to try and rework this to be a little bit easier to use. But we can also do Claude Code and Codex OAuth, which has already been done, and you can test that here as well. Model lists, So this is going to be a longer list of models, but you just turn on the ones you want. MCP servers, so you can add an MCP in. I've got Claude Desktop literally there, and skill generator, and then you can just see all the different tools that are available, and you can obviously set this up as an MCP itself. I've also got LSP, which is the language servers. So when you start a project and start working on a project, you'll start to see this populating with the different LSPs, and it uses that to help do things like autocomplete and things like that, and to spot errors. I love my theming, so got all the sort of classic themes. I'm going to add a few more in there as well. Got the code index tool. This is really cool. So this is the mgrep. I'll show you this properly in a minute once we get into the actual app. And then part of this thing I'm calling pro features, because I'm still messing around with the sort of different versions, is the coding model. So this is actually a series of local models you can download from small to large that handle patches. So they're really, really fast at doing those source code patches in the background. And then I've also got this morph service that I've put in there as well that you can use, which is a cloud-based service. So you can choose to either do that or use the local version, or not at all, then it would just use the model normally. So quite feature-rich settings. So let's go into the website. Hopefully it's running. Yes, it is. So that's the actual website for Cluso. So, it comes up like a normal browser. You've got all the kind of normal features that you'd expect. At the bottom of the screen here, you can see a toolbar. Probably need to just make that a bit more obvious, but we've got, this is to do with collaboration and sharing. We've got the picker. We've got a move feature, which I'll show you, and we've got the voice control. Some of those commands are mirrored at the top. So we've got picker. And the main reason for that is because we can get rid of the chat as well, and we can just have a bit more, accessibility with everything, and I can then use those features from pretty much anywhere. But that also will come into it when we go into the multi-view mode in a second. You just get this back and get rid of that message. So first things you can do, pretty basic stuff. You can just use it normally. I can go into, say, haiku, and say hello, and we get a response back pretty quickly, I hope. Oh, there we go. So it's still code. What do you want to do? This is the project we're in, and all the different things that we can do. You can see straight away that's the context chip popping up there. So I could be saying things like, how do I, and it comes up with question, or I can say, change the logo, and it comes up with modify UI. So it's basically creating these chips to then understand what it needs to be able to do tooling wise and everything else. So simple things that I can do. Obviously pick my models and my thinking modes, but let's just get straight into it. So this is probably a little bit slower because of the screen sharing, but if I want to click on something, I can just click on a logo, it highlights it. You can see that the little chip goes into the chat to say what we've clicked on. It's come up with the page and the lines of code. And then I can just type in here, make logo smaller. You can see immediately we've got edit code, we've got modify UI going on. So I hit go, and it's made the logo smaller straight away.
That was so quick.
We've got an approval button down here, and I can just toggle between those two modes. I'm actually going to move this so it's probably closer to the thing you've changed, so it's a bit more obvious, but you could just flip between those two. And then I've got a duplicate message here at the moment, but normally that would be hidden, or I might be on full screen mode, so you wouldn't see that anyway. I can actually control the level of sort of security I want in terms of, do I want it to verify all the time, or do I just want it to change it and write it? So that's all configurable. But the idea is that change that you saw was pretty much instant, because we're doing this DOM trick, where I'm making the change straight away. And then in the background, what's happening is it's changing the code, and then verifying that, and then saving it. So that's one simple thing you can do. The other thing you can do is moving things. So I quite like this one. You can actually say, okay, I really want to see this, kind of like, I know this is terrible, but I want to see it over there. And then the idea is it records where you're positioning it. So when you then ask it over here, or you take a screenshot with the screenshot tool, you could just tap that and it will take a screenshot, and you can say, I want to put it there. And you notice it hides the handles and everything. that doesn't include that. Otherwise, Claude has this thing. I can see the problem. There's orange marks around the component, and you're like, no, 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 no. That's the markup. So the whole point there is that you're just giving it this contextual information. You're just giving it more detail as to what you want it to actually do. The other thing that I really wanted, and this is one of those things that drives me crazy with these tools, is when Claude says, "Can you show me the logs or something?" And I just think, why do you not know what the logs are? So with Cluso, what you do is you can press this button here, and it just includes the console logs. But that might be a bit too much. So what you can do is click this button here, and now you can access all the logs from the sort of mini browser, and you can just click the ones that you want to send. And there's also going to be an option here to hit a search button, and it will actually proactively do some searching to add to the context so that the model's got a bit more information about what that means. So things like, de-duping this and stuff like that, because you could have a local model very quickly, a triage model very quickly summarize that into one thing. It might even solve it itself. So I wanted something really, useful there in terms of the console. We've also got a terminal in there as well, and we're using Ghosty. I'm using a web version of Ghosty to actually do the terminal. So it just behaves like a normal terminal. You can run Claude in it, you can run OpenCode, anything else. And part of the work that I want to do, and this is another reason for the MCPs being handled between the agents and the app itself, is that the MCPs will become the communication method. So that if I was to sort of open OpenCode or Claude code in the terminal, or even outside, but was connected via the MCP, Cluso would know that Claude's doing stuff. They would both be able to understand, you've got another agent working on those files, I won't touch those. So I wanted to have that kind of, I think they call it ACP, with the agent communication protocol between the different agents. So that was a key thing as well. So voice mode usually works here. You get the toolbar come up again. I mean, the toolbar's configurable, but ordinarily you wouldn't get it unless you were in this mode, really. And now, hopefully you'll be able to hear this, but let's just see. Hey, Cluso, I want to change a button on the website or a link. Can you highlight all of the links in the page?
Okay. I see 23 links on this page. They are numbered 1 to 23. Which link would you like to change?
Could you change the text in link 3 to say, book a demo with me?
Okay. I've changed the text of link 3 to book a demo with me.
That's great. Now, could you show me the file list?
Okay. I'm showing you the file list.
So the other thing that we've got in there is I wanted to have the mobile views. And I started to go down this path of having different previews that you can do. And there's loads of apps out there that do this kind of thing, where they can show you the actual size and it works out the PPI of the screen, or shows you different views and rotates them and things like that. Well, I really wanted, that led me down this path of thinking, actually it'd be really cool if I could see them all at the same time. So I was playing around with the idea of having some sort of scrolling thing that I could do. And then I thought, why don't we just have a multiple view system like this? So essentially what this is, it looks like React Flow. It's not React Flow. It's essentially, I worked out that I could really just create my own React Flow. That's a lot easier to deal with, because I love React Flow, but it can be a real nightmare to customize because of the way the nodes work. And I'm a bit of a pain. I want to put a web browser in there, and I want to put a camera view and a screen sharing and all kinds of crazy stuff in the nodes, and React Flow doesn't like that. So I came up with this kind of multi-view concept. And so effectively they're all nodes, but they're not really connected to anything usually. You can see there we've got the desktop view, and we can rotate that, we can resize it, we can go full screen or full view in here if we wanted to. So yeah, so these are fully interactive. So I can scroll all of these just like they are normal web pages, because they are effectively. The other thing I can do is there's a little lock button here. And that basically, once I lock that on a particular view, then if I go to other pages, it will sync all of the others. So it just means that I can, click around different pages and have a quick overview of what they're going to look like. And I'm working on adding the scrolling as well. So I'll be able to do the scrolling feature, which would be really, really useful. But one of the things I wanted to do on here, this isn't fully finished yet, is I wanted this sort of concept of being able to take a particular view or the whole app. So we've got some options up here where we can add Kanban boards and to-do lists and notes. But I wanted to have something where I could actually link something to a particular view and then have its own to-do list. So that's really what this concept's about. So you can click on the little button there and add different elements. So it could be a Kanban board, could be notes. So if I get rid of that, I can add like a little note, scribble notes. And that could be dropping some images in there or some text or whatever I wanted to put in there. And it's going to be related to that particular view. And I can also just drop any of these on, freely without the link. But the whole purpose of this was the dictation feature. So the idea is I'm going to add a little scribble feature. And then as I'm sort of hitting the button to start recording and giving feedback, and I was saying, can we change this? Can we change this? All the to-do items will start appearing in the list. And you can obviously, add your own. It's always fun trying to type when the thing is so small. So, it's going to have subtasks in there and everything. And that will also sync with the tasks that the agents are creating. So Claude's to-do list, you'll be able to see that, Codex and all these other ones that have their own to-do stores. So I'm just going to sort of grab all that information from those. And then the other thing we've got here, which is pretty cool, is we have a terminal. So this is actually running Ghosty web interface. I've got a little patch that I do as part of your sort of file, part of the installation. That's what do they call it? Ask Shell, with a little tool that I wrote that sort of patches your ZSH startup file to give you things like syntax checking. So as you type, it colors and it gives you predictive predictions and autocomplete. But it can also switch it into AI mode, which is quite nice. So yeah, you can run a full app in here. So I've got open code. There we go. And it's completely usable. Running in its own little browser. And of course, the thing with this is, if I add the MCPs for Cluso to OpenCode, then now that can communicate with OpenCode and communicate back and forth, which now means I can actually give tasks to OpenCode. So I could actually have my task list connected to the OpenCode window, and that would then get the tasks sent through to OpenCode either via MCP or writing it directly into its database. So you can really sort of get all these models working together. So the whole idea here, and I've got like an auto arrange feature as well. So the idea is you can just dump a load of stuff in here and then just sit there and watch it if you wanted to. And all you got to do now and again is, you want to see something, you can click it and get, I think my full screen's not working at the moment, but if you want to see it, you can just go and zoom into it, and you'll be able to just see the status, leave some comments, go back again. And you can drop any website into this as well. So if I add another browser in, I can, basically just surf to anywhere effectively. So you could have you could have a knowledge base. You could build your own little knowledge base and then just link all these things together. So it is, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but it's kind of like a scratch pad, With the collaboration feature, what I wanted was something where someone else could take part without having to have the app. So with this little button down here, when you turn that on, what happens is it actually works properly in this mode. What that does now is that shares a socket connection, and it will connect with a Chrome extension that's like a mini version of the selection interface. And so we can see each other's cursors on the screen. And I can see when you're clicking on stuff and highlighting stuff, and then you can actually leave comments, but it could also be a client. The client could actually be in their browser and they could be picking on things and leaving comments. And so you're actually getting live comments coming in that could be going into a triage agent that goes straight into your to-do list or your Kanban board. So I could be sitting here watching this Kanban backlog fill up as the client's testing, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if I'm going to open source the whole product yet. I might do. But at the moment, I'm just kind of like building the main thing. So.
And what's really cool is clearly thought has been put into it from the perspective of a builder. Like it's a tool for builders by builders, and that just comes through in terms of how you've set things up and allowed it just really integrate into the workflow smoothly.
With all these things, I don't really build them as a thing to sort of try and sell or make money from, in the sense that it's a product. It's more built for me. and it's it's trying to solve that frustration that I get with these things. We're in a unique situation when you're a coder, or even now when you're not, where, you know, the things you're complaining about, you can actually do something about. You know, it's like, I hate the fact I have to paste the context into Cursor or whatever it was that you had to do. Well, we don't have to do that because we can write the tools or the prompts or the things to do it.
So Jason, why is it called Cluso?
It's just a silly play on the Pin Panther, Inspector Cluso. It's a web inspector, you know, it's an inspector tool. And so I figured it was quite a cool name. And I even did a little cartoon like character of the sort of trench coat. That was the original sort of look of it, which I still might bring back. So yeah, it's spelt differently, obviously, but it's Inspector Cluso.
Love a good reference. Jay, this was a blast. Thank you for not only walking us through Cluso and sharing this exciting tool, but talking about how you built and some of the challenges you faced. It's really helpful for builders to see how other builders approach things.
No, brilliant. Thank you for having me. Loved it.
And where can people find it? How can people keep up with you?
The app's going to be at cluso.app, so cluso.app. The website's up there at the moment. It's got a waiting list form there, but I'm going to be putting a download up there for the Mac version at least. There's a Windows version as well. I'm just going to test it on a Windows machine. But yeah, it'll be, by the time this airs, it will be available. It's currently free because I'm still playing around with it. There will be some pro options, and it might be that I open source it. And have the pro options as like a cloud service or something. But I'm just messing around at the moment, so we'll see where it goes.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Jason Kneen. Jason's been a regular guest on Tool Use because he builds great things, and he's more than willing to share the process of how he's done it. If you're building a product and you would like to showcase it on Tool Use and are willing to talk about some behind the scenes, some problems you solved and how you got over it, please let me know. I'd love to feature more builders who are solving real world problems and actually want to help other builders in the process. If you could please like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel a lot, and I'll see you next week.